Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Adventure Paradox podcast. Today, we have a guest who I did not know I would be interviewing a week ago. We met in the airport flying out of Aspen. She was wearing a hat. And this hat, she's going to put it on for us if you're watching on the video. It's the red hat with 29029. If you know what this is, you know you're already in for an incredible interview. This is a six-time finisher of this 29029 Everest race, which is the altitude of Everest. And as I was walking around the airport, I was like, 902129, what is going on? Everybody's got this weird number. And then I realized I had heard that there were people hiking up and down Ajax, which is the mountain in Aspen, Colorado, 9 times through the night to get to the altitude of Everest, and that's what these folks were wearing. And Arwen, who I'm about to introduce, was the first person who I had this epiphany that that's what the hat was about. And I came up to you, Arwen, and I said, "Can you please answer a question for me about that number? It's got to
Yep.
be the altitude, right?" Oh, so good. And thank you for sending me the video, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, and I'm going to give you a proper introduction. But
Yes.
the red hat is specific to finishers, Arwen.
Yep.
Can you just explain the red hat and explain the race for someone who has no idea what we're talking about and just started listening to us?
Yes, I love this race. It was my very first ever endurance race. I just happened to be at a financial meeting of all things at the end of 21, and one of the speakers had done this endurance event. And he said from stage, he said, "We want to let you know that we secured up 10 tickets for this upcoming event next summer in 22, in August of 22." And then he said the dates. He said August 18th, 19th, and 20th. And my birthday is August 18th. I was turning 47. And
Mm.
I was like, I have to do it. I mean, it's just this is all like everything's racing in my head. And so he said, 10 tickets, that's all we have. The first 10 of you who get up here can have one of those tickets. I had to pay for it, but at least get the spot. And so I ran as fast as I could across the room, and I was the first one in front of him. And then when I got the congratulatory email later that night, these are all financial advisors. I got the congratulatory email. It said I was going to grow as a man, and it was signed, "Congratulations, brother." And I was like, huh, maybe they didn't
Hmm.
expect a woman to sign up for this. So, needless to say, I was the only woman who signed up for it. And those 10 tickets, actually, by the time the event came around, had gone through 33 people. 33 people had signed up, and I guess 23 people had quit. And then more people had kind of taken that spot. So, yeah, it's a big commitment. And just to expand a little bit, many different mountains around the United States and into Canada, but the premise is always the same. You hike up a certain amount of vertical gain, then you ride the gondola down, and you repeat that until you get the vertical equivalent to Mount Everest, 29,029 feet. And if you do that, you get the coveted, the only way you can get it, red hat. And this one is specific for Aspen. It actually says Aspen on the front, but otherwise they all look the same. And so, yes, that is something I decided to bite off to see what I was capable of as a 47-year-old woman. Having been an athlete my whole life, I played volleyball at the University of Washington, but I was never an endurance athlete. I had never done anything much more than like little sprinting things. So I just really wanted to know what I was capable of. Was I really capable to do something that they give you 36 hours to do? And what would I learn about myself in the process? And I think that's probably what you and I will talk a little bit more about, but it has become just my heart. The community is something unlike anything I've ever experienced. I've done multiple other endurance races since then, multiple um, half marathons. I've done a 50K. I've thrown some other things in there. I know, whatever. But those are all kind of like side note things. It's like, oh yeah, if I could do something for 28, 32 hours, I can do a 5 hour something. It's just a total shift in mentality. But that's really where it started. It was August of 22. And now since then, I have done six, and Aspen being by far the highest. And now they're absolutely saying the hardest.
Mm,
But it actually ended up being my best. I felt the strongest, so I was thrilled.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, wow. And just for folks who are like, this is all a lot and amazing, and also, who is this person? So, Arwen, of course, you were in a group with a bunch of financial advisors because you are a financial advisor. In fact, you and your husband for 23 years had a business helping folks, specifically women, with having a retirement plan.
Yeah,
Right?
all the
You've
retirement.
written books about it. I think that the title of your book, and I hope you'll hold it up for those watching on YouTube, is so powerful. She handled it. And then what's the
Yes.
subtitle, please?
She handled it retirement, an inspiring and empowering financial guide for women over 40.
I love it so much. Of course, before we started rolling the mic, I was like, yeah, I'm 44. I don't know. Retirement's a ways away, like what do I need to know? Can't my husband take care of that for me? All the typical things. You also have a podcast, which is evergreen now. You have 50 episodes, also called She Handled It, I believe. This is amazing. I mean, you're out there in the world, you're helping people, you're changing people, and you're also seeing, it sounds like to me, the paradox and importance of your own internal adventure, doing the work yourself. Can you tell us a little bit more about your personal journey as a financial advisor? And we're going to talk a little bit more about some other really cool and curious things about your past and the way you see wildlife, and we'll get into all of that and nature. And I know my horse listeners are like, animals, what? So we'll talk about that too. But tell us about how you got into financial planning and this idea of She Handled It. What's your personal journey there?
Well, I know you said you're going to get into it, but it only makes sense to just go back to the beginning. So, I have a Bachelor of Science in Zoology, and I ran a wildlife rehabilitation center for a number of years. It was the only job working with animals that I ever wanted to do from the time I was 5 years old. I remember being in high school and they would have that test of like what would be a great profession for you. I remember none of the questions except for one. It said, do you want to work with lots of people, some people, or no people? And I was like, no people, because I wanted to work with animals. That's all I wanted to do. So I didn't
Yeah.
care. I didn't want to work with people. I wanted to work with animals. And so wildlife rehabilitation actually ended up really being just something that worked for me. I didn't want to become a vet, although I did work in an exotics vet for a time. That was really great for the work that I did in wildlife. But I didn't want to be like a dolphin trainer because I thought that dolphins being in, zoos was inhumane and things like that. So I always wanted to work with animals in a wild environment. And so I did that for 4 years and I loved it. And actually talk about it a little bit in my book, but it's the only job I was ever fired from. And I wasn't the only one fired. Me and like four other people all at once were fired. It was this kind of strange experience that hit me so hard. And I was 24 years old. I was in a failing marriage at the time, and that kind of just spiraled the whole thing. And I found myself divorced at 24, totally not knowing what the heck to do with my life. And really, at that point, I had a girlfriend who met somebody in a coffee shop who was new to her building. They exchanged business cards. She was in mortgage, he was in finance, and he said, I just launched a company. Do you know of anybody looking for a job? So she connected the two of us. I went on the job interview. It ended up being the only job interview, one job interview that I went on. And that man I've been married to now for 21 years.
More than a
I
job
have
interview.
three
Yes.
children with, and we had a financial company for 23 years. So that's how I got into the industry. But what I found with it being so seemingly different than wildlife is it actually wasn't. There was a lot of similarities in that when you work with, and my book is kind of has a lot of things filtered throughout it about my wildlife career, and it's all written in stories. It is the most non-financial book that I've ever read. But I just realized that just like an animal that's hurt and unsure and terrified, a lot of times we, as, and I'll just say as women, feel that same way about money.
Mm,
It brings shame. We haven't done it well. We haven't taken responsibility. We've given responsibility to somebody else that maybe they failed us miserably and were divorced at 50. There's just a lot of our emotions that get tied into money.
mm,
And I really saw women a lot of the same way, that they had a desire to learn, but they were afraid that they
mm,
couldn't do it, that it was going to be too hard, that it was going to be too boring, that they thought of many of the same things. They'd kind of glaze over and just like, just, Monte Carlos, just like these weird words that come out in the financial industry that make me want to throw up that I can't stand. So if I can't stand it, I can only imagine somebody who's not even in the industry how they feel. So that's just what led me to really start to transition in the last almost 10 years of our firm. It wasn't a women's only firm. Most of our advisors were men because that's typical. 80% of the industry is. But we transitioned to serving women in the Seattle, the greater Seattle area, really the Pacific Northwest, because they were being underserved as they
mm,
are all across the nation, just not being talked to in a way that understood and just kind of being left out of the conversation, even though we make up the largest segment of the US population. We're the greatest holders of wealth now in the country. The next 10 years, baby boomers are going to be transitioning 20 to 30 trillion of wealth, and 2/3 of that's going to go to women.
mm,
And so they estimate in the next 10 years, women are going to hold north of 60% of US wealth. So I saw that as a huge need that needed to be filled. And so we not only did that locally, but then I took it upon myself to become a national trainer of financial advisors across the nation on how to serve women well, because
mm.
my industry, even now, still doesn't do it very well. They speak in a
Yeah.
masculine language. They speak a lot to the husband or the partner, even in this day and age where there's two breadwinners, or maybe even the woman is the higher breadwinner, doesn't
Hmm.
really matter, because if there are children involved, naturally what happens is women tend to gravitate more towards raising the kids, because we just have, I mean, that's just our God-given gift
Mm,
of being more empathetic and and nurturing and those types of traits. So it only leaves so much time. So often what it does in a traditional heterosexual relationship is that it goes to the man.
mm,
And I've worked with gay couples as well. There still tends to be this one person handles it more than the other, but the ultimate most important part is that you understand what you have, how it's going to keep you safe for the future, and if you are married or part of a couple, how is it going to outlive their possible passing? Because if you are married to a man, 80% of men die married and 80% of women die single. So that means the
oh,
financial plan of a woman better work for her. She better know how it's going to work for her, because the likelihood her spouse is going to die first is extraordinarily high.
mm,
So you can see why it mattered to me, and why I found it to be very important. And it resonated with a lot of women here in my area, because they just weren't getting that kind of communication in a way that didn't make them want to glaze over and just go, it's too complicated. I just can't figure it out. So
right.
yeah, that's how I found myself there.
Um, Arwen, you just had so many mic drops come out. I'm like, let me back up a minute. So really interesting your how you got into finance and this history. A couple of statistics that I just want to share again for the record and
Yeah.
hear you say more about. This idea of serving women well, and I have seen this statistic floating around that women are going to be and are already the greatest holders of wealth. And I can't remember how soon it will be 2/3 of women will hold wealth. Is it 10,
Yeah,
50?
they're saying in the next 10 years, women are going to hold north of 60% of US wealth. Yeah.
Right. So, if you are a financial advisor, women are becoming your customer more and more. Are you paying attention? Right?
Right.
Is a
Right.
question. You are paying attention. This statistic really boggles my mind. This idea that 80% of men die married and 80% of women die single. I'm wondering, some of this maybe is coming from we live longer,
Yep.
right? And some of
We
it,
marry younger.
and we,
We tend to marry an older person. We're a little bit younger.
yep, yep, as did I. My husband's 10 years older than me, right?
Same in mine. Yep.
Okay, look at us.
Yep.
Well, we'll be hanging out with each other
Maturity.
later.
It's
The
like
long haul,
it's the
friend.
same maturity level.
Exactly, long haul. So I'm kind of curious, because a lot of my passion, I have a history of owning a fitness club. So talking to women about spending money on themselves, spending money on fitness, that this is something you got to take care of your body. You only got the
Yeah.
one, right?
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your thoughts and some of the things you've seen because this idea of shame around money, there's often a lot of shame around bodies, shame around taking time for themselves. And I'm making a generalization
Yeah.
about
Sure.
women, but a lot of the objections that would come up, and one of the four main ones that we would be prepared for is who's in charge of the finances because they'd say, "Oh, I have to check in with my husband," right?
Right.
I'd love to hear if you see any connection between women around fitness, taking care of their bodies, and taking responsibility for their finances.
I think that's a really great question. And I do. I mean, one of the things that I have from a very young age, young, I would say young adult age, is I was willing to utilize some of the little bit of money I had to take some very basic, like multivitamin supplements
Mhm.
to start recognizing there were things I just couldn't get in my diet. And I think that is such a telling component when people say, I don't have the money for that. So something just as simple as as a simple multivitamin that's going to be able to fill in some of the basic gaps that our food is not going to be able to do. If we can't find the value of taking some of our money and like you said, this is the only vessel that I
Mhm.
have.
Mhm.
No, I can't replace it when it's gone. There's a saying that says people will spend their health trying to gain wealth, and then they'll try to spend their wealth trying to regain their health. And the
Mhm.
truth of the matter is, if you have abused or just been very mediocre with your body throughout your 20s and 30s, really the time periods where being healthy is the easiest because as we start to age and here I'm middle aged and nearing menopause and all that kind of stuff, it gets more challenging because there's
Mhm.
more factors that are working against you. But
Mhm.
if you have laid the foundation of caring for yourself, it's the small little things, the compound effect, the small little things that add up over time. And so yeah, all of those things all those things I think fall into the same just thought process. Am I willing to carve out just a little bit of money to have better health? Whether that
Mhm.
be what I put into my body or doing exercise. I mean, there were 10 years where I did not belong to a gym um, because my kids were young. I was running a business. I just did not have the time to go to a gym. It just wasn't. And I was trying to also save the money too because we went through the Great Recession, and that's a
Mhm.
whole nother story for another day. But I still would go running, I would go walking, I would go hiking, I would do resistance bands, I would do sit ups in my garage, I would do something to at least be able to maintain. I wasn't trying to like create some great fitness, but at least maintain what it is that I had. And
Yeah.
then when the time period came where I could do something else that actually required a little bit of money, like join a yoga studio or, or do some endurance event or hire a personal trainer or whatever I could. But I think it's the excuses that we make that continue to lead us into poor decisions instead of
Mhm.
saying, I deserve to be healthy, to be the best version of who I can be for the people around me, whether that be my children, my spouse, my friends, my parents, my coworkers. Am I doing the things for me that are going to provide the greatest outcome of who I can be? Or am I making excuses, but yet if somebody sat down with me, they could probably find the $60 a month to pay for those multivitamins. Am I spending them at Starbucks or, going out and having a couple nights of drinks throughout the month? Or, because I know that with the years in which I was drinking, how much money was spent and how much energy I lost and productivity because of how I felt the next day, even if I just had a couple of glasses of wine. So I think all those things are so intertwined. It's about taking personal responsibility. And ultimately, with the financial thing, I always say the same thing. It's picking up a book and it's first reading a book and just getting yourself familiar with the things that you should be considering. And
Mm-hmm.
I love reading because I think it's kind of like a counselor. It's the most, you can get the most honest with yourself without losing face because
Yeah.
you're like, oh God, I totally do that. But you don't have to say it in front of somebody and admit that you do it. You can just go, yeah, that's something I'm kind of ashamed or disappointed that I tend to do. And now
Mm.
I'm aware of it. And what can I do to change it? So I think all of them are fully intertwined.
Oh, so good. And I totally agree with you. And I love that mic drop. I think we're going to make a reel out of that because that was so good of I deserve to be healthy. Like really these affirmations. And is there an excuse? And if I really sat down and got honest with myself or had a coach and someone got honest with me and helped me and also a fellow author here. I know you have two books. It sounds like the second book is just maybe a bit of an edit on the first one. Yeah.
Yeah,
And that
yeah,
you have
yeah,
another book coming up too, which I want to hear about. But there is something really powerful about the written word and how
yeah,
our brains work when we slow down. And it really is just you and these words connecting to your spirit, to your mind, and hopefully leading to a change in footwork, right? Change of heart.
yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about your book, and if you want to tell us about the one that's coming, but maybe some experiences you've had where through being a published author, you have connected with others and helped them take those next steps as a result of your words.
Yeah. So the next steps is probably the most important component of my book. I mean, it's written the way it is written, it always has at the end of the chapter, it literally has the word next
Nice.
steps.
I love it.
So it's not only, I wrote it to where the most important takeaways of each chapter and then what your next steps are. I mean, what are the things that you really need to be considering and
Mhm.
asking of yourself and being serious about? And then in the back, I also have recommended or resources on becoming a better human, recommended financial resources. So, other financial books that I've read that I think are really good for women, recommended financial podcasts, recommended motivational books, inspirational podcasts. So, a number of different components because it's about holistic. I mean, holistic financial planning is a term which really is about seeing your whole financial world and how it all works together.
Mm.
But truthfully, to be your best version of yourself, it really is about being healthy in all areas of life. Now, are we always in balance? Absolutely not. There's no
Mhm.
balance. I think a lot of people say it's a fallacy. It's like you're kind of always walking like on a line, but sometimes you have to get really far off one way to detour around something or just to really grow in an area. And so you have to put a lot more focus to it. Parenting young children does that. That definitely gets us out of balance. We're not going to be spending as much time, being an endurance athlete. We're not,
Right.
you can't
Right.
sacrifice 20 hours a week training when you have children at home, small children
Yeah.
at home.
Yeah.
Same thing with growing a business as an entrepreneur. Those first couple of years, you take every waking moment that you have. You're working weekends and nights and
Mm.
vacations and all of that. So it's not always about everything being even. But ultimately, it's still coming back to, okay, now I've kind of got this area handled. And so now let's get back to more of a place of balance where I'm not spending all of my time, just focused on my children. I love my mom dearly, but one of the things she sacrificed her entire life, my youth, taking me to and from a bazillion sporting events. That was her social life. My
Right.
sister felt completely left behind. She was 2 years
Mhm.
older. She wasn't an athlete. So she saw my mom always spending time with me, and it hurt. And I mean, we've had a lot of these conversations. We're both in our 50s now, but that was really hard for her, and rightfully so. And so when I was raising my own kids, I intentionally decided I was not, as much as I benefited personally from my mom's sacrifice, I was not willing to sacrifice that much of my life to never travel, to never be home with my other children,
Mm,
to not spend time with my spouse. It was just that was it because I was playing two and three sports at a time sometimes.
wow.
And so those are things where we kind of go, okay, well, how much am I willing to sacrifice? I
Yeah.
wanted my kids to have experiences. I wanted to know what it was like to go on a family vacation. I never had that.
Yeah.
So maybe I
Yeah.
overcorrected a little bit on that. I like to travel a lot with my children, but we have such a great relationship. And, so I just think it's important to recognize that there are times where you have to work a little harder in one area, but
Yeah.
ultimately we still have to look back and go, in the broad scheme of my life, am I relatively balanced in the important areas, family and
Yep.
fitness and
Yep.
mental health and spirituality and marriage if you're married, all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
or are there areas that are constantly being sacrificed? And if they get sacrificed for too long, often you can lose them. You can lose your health. You can lose your marriage.
Yep.
You can lose a great relationship with your children. And it's a lot harder to get back.
Wow, so good. I'm actually thinking about a recovery saying, which is a slip. It's an acronym, but sobriety loses its priority. So
Mm,
there are certain things where, fitness, huge priority. But depending on the season of your life, to
right,
your point, you might not have the 20 hours a week.
right.
Statistically, stay-at-home moms with kids under the age of 5 are the most depressed. Something I talk about in my book, The Adventure Paradox, how to go big, haul it all, go home. Anyway, in your relationships. And it was me really working through having an adventure with young children, with our
Yeah,
horses, like putting it all together and going,
yeah,
how do I do all of this with all of this now? Because it's really
yeah.
different. Motherhood is really different. I think a lot of women go through a grief period, if they're honest, of who they
Sure.
used to be, who they're becoming. And in any season of our
Yeah,
life, really coming up to the space of this is who I am now. This is the capacity I have. I'm going to sign up for the thing. Like when you stepped up,
right,
you were like, I am running
right,
across the
right,
room.
right,
One of
right.
those tickets is mine.
Yeah,
Let's go. Let's go into that a little bit more because I want to hear more about what has it been like for you training for 29029? I don't know if that's how you guys
oh,
refer.
you're saying right, 29 or 29. Yeah.
Okay, cool, cool. But what's it like training? How have you, and I know you've done it 6 times, and one time in Jackson Hole, we got plenty of Jackson Hole listeners, so we'd love to hear about what that was like. I know it's on pause for 2026, which is too bad because I was like, oh, I gotta look this up. But I'd love to hear what's your training like? And also, I know you do a lot of solo hiking, but your own spiritual path and growth through this particular adventure, this particular race.
Yeah. Well, specifically the training, not personalized to me, but 29029, because I mean, your listeners will look it up. Some of them will look it up and they'll go, oh my gosh, that's really expensive. And it is. I mean, it is a first class event. They take care of everything. And one of the components that's very important is they give you a 20-week training program. So it comes out in 2-week increments because they don't want you to freak out and look at week 17 where you're going to be training an exorbitant amount of time and you'll never think you'll ever be ready for it. So that's one of it. We get biweekly calls. We have an amazing community where we can, that community app that we can constantly be sharing and asking questions. And then it's the 4-day event. It's the lodging. It's all the food on the mountain. You literally could come with just the mandatory gear on your back and nothing else, and they'll take care of everything, and then a lot of personalized things. So, having said all of that, that is a training program that goes into your email every 2 weeks. Well, it can sit there as it does with people, never get opened,
Mm,
never get attempted. There's 3 different tiers depending on your fitness level. So if you've never even done like a 5K, you can
hmm.
still do it. You just do fitness level 1 or fitness level 2 for those who have done some events, and then fitness level 3 are people who've done 29 or 29 or some pretty extensive endurance events and things like that. So, um, I guess the point I'm trying to make is it only works if you do the work. I am such a preparer. I always have been. I don't like to be under. I don't like to wing things. I don't do my best work there. Some people are great off the cuff speakers. Some people are great just, sitting on a panel and just thinking of things, off the top of their head. That is not my strength. And truthfully, I still don't think you get the best of people when they come in unprepared,
Mm,
because it's the unknowns that get people. And in endurance races, endurance sports have unknowns. When you're on a mountain, as you know, the weather can change in a moment. In a moment. And I had the perfect example of it in Aspen this past weekend. It wasn't to me, so I got to just laugh my butt off. But one of my friends that I was hiking with, he was just getting too hot. And we have mandatory gear for a reason. Mandatory gear is a rain jacket, a beanie, and gloves.
yep.
Okay. And so you have to carry it on you. And the reason we have to carry it on you is because I was actually on the mountain when we didn't have mandatory gear that ended up creating this need for mandatory gear. And that was in Snow Basin, Utah. That was my
Mm,
first one ever. And we had two storms roll in, lightning storms, shut down the gondola, torrential downpour, broke the gondola. So we were stuck at the top for 2.5 hours during the event. And
mm,
finally, for the first time ever, they said, "We don't know how much longer it's going to take for them to fix it. We'll lead anybody who wants to actually go down the mountain. We've never had to do that. We'll lead a team down the mountain." And then they got it back up and running. And then, like 12:30 that night, another squall came through, lightning, again, torrential downpour, hail, just terrible, right? So
mm.
this is when they determined mandatory gear was necessary, because these things happen on mountains, right?
Yep, yep.
So we're in Aspen, and we're the sun is going down. It was still warm. We're hiking 3,200 feet, so the difference in temperature could be up to 15 degrees difference from the base to the summit. And this friend of mine is like, I'm so hot. And he takes off his mandatory gear and his pack. We're like, dude, you're leaving your pack. And he goes, he's just like, come on, you guys. I'm just so hot. And he's like, you guys are such real followers. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. And so we go down and we start back up again. And we hit the second aid station as the sprinkling happened. And then a massive squall comes through. It literally like almost obliterates the aid station. I mean, everything's being blown into it. They have to remove, try and cover everything. And it's just massive rain and cold and wind. And one of our coaches just happened to be up there, and he's like, "Okay, everybody get your mandatory gear out." And I'm just thinking, man, what a dummy.
Yep, yep. Mm,
It's like putting my hat on. It was so cold, Kat. And so he just like took off out of the aid station because there was nothing else he could do. It just get to the summit as fast as possible. And he was so cold. And so it's just that that I mean, I guess my point is things change in an instant.
yeah.
So preparation is what they say. What do they say? That you can't outperform bad gear. I
Mm,
mean, really, I mean, when it comes down to it, when you're absolutely, he literally had a t-shirt and shorts on, and the temperature had dropped so much with that squall, and it was rain and sideways rain. It was just wind, and it was just, I was getting windburn, and it was miserable, right? But we at least had the necessary gear to get us through the next mile and a half and next, 1,500 feet or whatever. And so that's that's the important part of life. I mean, just having something sit in my inbox doesn't train me for anything. Having a financial book sitting on your nightstand or, in your Kindle unread doesn't do anything for you. It's what is the preparation that you personally are going to do in order to get to that goal. But the thing that I've learned most as it relates to this event, because it is a 20-week training program, and it is something you have to put a lot of time and energy and effort into, is it it's I guess there's kind of like there's I kind of look at it in like four different steps. First, you have to just be willing to sign up and commit to it,
Mhm.
and gather up the necessary items to start. You know,
Mhm.
whether that be if you're doing something like this, getting the proper shoes, a little
Mhm.
bit of gear, whatever that might be, and just starting. And then you start to see things start to compound. You know, you start out small, and then now it's really the grind, it's the work, it's the journey, it's who you're going to become as you're leading up to that big goal. So 20 weeks is a long time to quit on yourself daily or to actually achieve something daily.
Yeah.
You know, whether it be a 30-minute run. Well, actually, we don't really run much. They've kind of moved that out.
Mm.
It's a lot more hiking and rucking and step ups and
Yep.
strength training and, things of that nature, but still. So it's those little things daily. Maybe it's 5 days a week you're doing something, and maybe, one week you weren't feeling that great and you only did 3 days worth of stuff. Well, it's 3 days more than you did last week.
Right.
And you now have every day is a new day. As scripture says, his grace is new every morning. So mercies are new every morning. And the truth is, every morning we wake up and that's all we have for today. I mean, even sobriety is very much the same thing. It's one day at a time. We're
Yep.
not future tripping. I'm not thinking about my goal in 20 weeks from now. It doesn't mean that doesn't come in my brain every once in a while. But if that's what I think about, yeah, it's going to be overwhelming. I'll never feel ready for it.
Mm.
And
Mm.
sobriety is the same thing. It's
Mm.
like, I'm just going to choose to not drink today because
Mhm.
I know how I'm going to feel tomorrow morning. I don't want to feel that way tomorrow morning.
Totally.
So I'm not going
Totally.
to, but it's daily choices. It's the compound effect, which is actually a really great book, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. I love it. It's a small book, but it's about how daily decisions add up to big results. And so you have to first decide to do it. Then you have to gather the right tools to actually get started. Then you have that second phase of really the training, the grinding to get towards it. And that's really where you need to embrace your life because
Yeah.
most of the time we spend achieving something is in that phase. It's the
Mm.
grind.
Mm.
It's
Mm.
the doing the work. It's not the goal. And, whether that be I'm finally getting married or finally having kids or finally getting a house or finally retiring or, or finally getting to the top of that mountain. Well, if that's all you're focused on, how much did you lose like
Mm.
cursing the process because you're
Yeah.
frustrated and it's hard and it's just that experience. And I think that's where a lot of times we get lost. We don't enjoy the journey. We're so focused on the destination, and the
Mm.
destination is over and done with so quick.
Totally.
Yeah,
Totally.
and then you're what are you left with?
Mhm.
So, so I would say, really, no future tripping, enjoying the process, staying present where your feet are planted, which is a huge thing in my life these days. I am so daily aware that today is the only day that I have been promised.
Mm.
And I think the more you age, the more you realize. I have a girlfriend that I met on a mountain last year. She had just finished breast cancer treatment.
Mm.
And we met in the middle of the night. She never thought she was going to be able to do it. We had this really great, meaningful moment. I was like all dressed up in a tutu and everything was lit up, and I was having a great ascent, and she was in her pain and misery cave.
Mm.
And yet, I was one of the first people that she reached out to because August 4th of this year, her husband, who worked as a contractor in Baghdad as a medic for dignitaries, had a headache, found
Mm.
out that he had stage 4 glioblastoma.
Mm.
So he's had brain surgery already. He's now in chemo and radiation, and he's not even 40. He's turning 40 this year. She was turning 50 this year. They're both still personally battling cancer
Mm.
together.
Oof.
And so it just is another reminder to me that every day is such a gift. And even in the midst of the difficult moments with children, with money, with businesses, with marriage, you are not guaranteed tomorrow.
Mm.
And so enjoying even the tough moments and finding joy, because joy and pain they still absolutely can coexist at the same time. and choosing to enjoy moments. And then I would say then the final thing is you get to the top of that mountain. Again, it's over in a heartbeat. And then there's kind of that letdown because you've just spent all this time achieving something. And so, really, the next phase is what is it that I have achieved personally where I can turn around to somebody behind me who's struggling with that
Yeah.
and be that hand up. They can say, hey, I know what you're going through. I've been there.
Mm,
And here, let me support you in that. Let me give you a little tough love. Let me give you a little bit of encouragement and be that light to you in the midst of your own darkness. And as it relates to the mountain, that's why I love volunteering every year. And I always do the overnight, the time where people want to quit, they're sick, they're tired, they're throwing up, they want to go in and sleep, they don't think they're going to be able to do it. And it's like, I've been there. I know what it's like throwing up on the side of a mountain. Actually, that's where I got to do at Jackson Hole at 1 in the morning, throwing up on the side of the mountain at 1 in the morning. I know what
mm,
that's like. But this is what you signed up for. You signed up for something really hard. And now you're exactly where you're supposed to be. So let's make some choices that we're not going to regret 24 hours from now when this is over
yeah.
and get you what it is that you came here to achieve, whether that is a red hat or not everybody comes for that. Um,
Mm,
but that's really kind of how I look at the whole span of life. I mean, it's about achieving things, but it's not just for the sake of us achieving things. It's then that we can turn around to somebody else who wants to accomplish that, and how can we be a light to them in the
mm,
midst of their own
mm.
attempt and effort to get there.
So powerful, and I'm so moved. I'm like almost ready to sign up, but and I do see your tattoo on your arm. Not lost on me as you were talking. Yes, so that's the logo, right?
So I got this for my 50th birthday, so just this last summer. There's a number of people who have the logo on them. I love 29029, but I would never just put a logo on me for the sake of putting a logo on me, no
Sure.
matter how much I love it. I loved Nike for a lot of years. I modeled for them years ago. But the way that I finally determined a tattoo for myself was this one has their logo, which to me is its embodiment of attempting really hard things,
Mm,
climbing mountains, endurance, that patience with suffering that
yeah.
comes on the mountain of just really being in those moments where you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm just so tired. I'm just so tired. And what you learn about yourself. So, really overcoming mountains. And then underneath it, I have a scripture that's James 1, 2 through 4, which has always been my scripture for pretty much my whole life since I've been saved at 24. And that is, count it all joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face trials of many kinds, knowing that the testing of your faith will produce patience. And let patience have its perfect work, so you will be complete and mature, lacking nothing.
Mm.
And so for me, and then the very top of it is a cross. So it's that everything I do, it all leads one way, and that's my relationship with Christ that just means the most to me. So that is my tattoo.
Oh my gosh, so awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah,
It makes a lot of sense. And we'll drop this video in there because you sent me like the 29029 video.
yeah,
I was like, wow, they say they're volunteers. Some of these guys have coaches on their vet. Like, what is this whole thing? People talking about, I lost all my gear, but other people gave me gear. It
yeah.
makes, as you explain it, it makes so much more sense. You're staying in a lot of the same places, the mandatory equipment. I mean, any mountain person's like, yeah, don't give up your essentials, because
No,
inevitably you will be tested. There's a reason
that's when Mother
that's
Nature
mandatory.
laughs at you.
Gosh, yeah, make plans, watch God laugh, right? And yeah, it's just so humbling and so powerful, and I'm so incredibly inspired. And I think this space of it takes a village. Like you're not alone on the mountain. You were never alone
No,
in this journey, in this commitment. And if you're having a moment where you feel like you can't do it, just to remember you're not the first one to have that moment. There's someone a little
exactly.
bit ahead of you who's going to be like, hey, I'm here in a tutu and I've
Yeah,
been throwing up too, and I can help
yeah,
you, and let's go. And I
yeah.
think something I'd love to hear a little more about, and then we'll wrap up, is the recovery. Like, what's it like after? Because I hear this, and maybe I'm the person you're passing it on to, where you're like, God, think about it. You got 52 weeks, only
Yeah.
be 20. But how do you recover after such a big effort? And you've done it many times now, so you kind of know once it's over, it's done, right? And
Yeah.
you do your training and you do your consistency and you show up. And then how have you been recovering? This event was not quite a week ago, this last summit. How do you recover? What do you think about in terms of helping your body, your spirit, like processing this last event?
Yeah, that's good. I would say good training allows for easy recovery.
Mm,
I think I didn't recognize that until I had done my first one. When I did like my first set of stairs, like, you know, 2 hours after I'd finished, I was like, oh, I still can do stairs. I'm not like, collapsed in the corner. And that's what good
ah,
training does. I mean, I almost hate to say it out loud because people can't believe it, but I don't have any aches and pains or muscle soreness. I went in, I had things planned for
yeah.
recovery. Once I got home back to the Seattle area, the very first day I had a professional stretch, an IV. I was doing full body cryo. And those are things that I have done consistently monthly throughout my training. And then the next day I got a deep tissue massage, which I'm way more sore from that
Right.
because he hurt me. I was like, ah, I'm
How
like
much?
borderline 8.5 to 9 in pain. And this morning I'm like still parts of I'm like, ow,
Oh,
it's from what
yeah,
he
yeah.
did. But I know it's best for my body. So really, the hard part is, I mean, truthfully, Kat, I would say the hard part is not doing something
Yeah.
for 7 to 10 days. The adrenal fatigue. Because today it's like I feel well enough. It's like, okay, well, it's Thursday. It's been 5 days since I've done something. Why not go for a little bit of a run or go into the gym? That's honestly the hardest part because
Mhm.
it's been such a consistent part of training 5, 6, sometimes even 7 days a week,
Mm,
and now not doing anything.
mm.
And I made that mistake the first round of thinking I was well enough. 3, 4 days in, went and did big like gym workout, and I felt like I had the flu for the next couple of
Uh,
days because my adrenal gland was still just like so
mm,
tapped out because
mm.
I was up for 34 hours hiking 28 of those.
Wow.
And until I finally got 2 hours of sleep, and then I still didn't go to bed until 9 o'clock that night or whatever. It was
Oh,
just like a little afternoon nap. And so, good training just really does allow the body to recover easily, but then you have to be diligent and remind yourself you're not ready to
hmm.
start treating your body in a difficult way again. Because even, I mean, the altitude, that was the highest of any of the mountains that we have by far. I mean,
Mm,
most of them end before 8,000 feet. So starting at
mm.
8,000 feet and then ending at 11,200. I was the most exhausted that I'd
Yeah.
ever been. But physically, the way I performed was the best I'd ever performed. And that was truly because I was very prepared. I
Yeah.
was just afraid. I was afraid of how much harder it would be for my body living at sea level and then all of a sudden trying to do this at altitude. And so I'd probably say people might say I over prepared. I just really closely followed the training program. And so that's probably the biggest thing is just being able to be still for a while,
Mm.
which isn't natural when you've just been in a go, go, go type of situation.
Yeah.
And just enjoying a little bit of free moments, not having something on your calendar and going, okay, I got to go and I got to do a 2.5 hour rucking. And then I got to do, 30 minutes of step ups. And then,
Yeah.
it's just, and then I have to do a weight training workout after whatever it is. And so that's just been really nice, just having a
Yeah.
little bit of downtime.
Oh, I love that. It's so powerful. And I think it's part of the adventure paradox where like people go, they go in, they go all in, they go hard for the big adventure, and they forget that you may make it. You may or may not, but on the other side, you're still met with you and whatever repercussions of the recovery from that effort, and all the many days before it, if you were training or weren't training and how much knowledge and experience you can pull upon. I just think that's so powerful. It's reminding me, and we'll close with this, but my midwives after my first baby, they were like, the first week you don't leave your bedroom. Like you can kind of walk around.
Yep.
the
I got
second
the same
week.
advice. I couldn't go downstairs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
They're
I
like,
delivered at home.
you
Yeah,
don't leave your house the second
yeah,
week. You're allowed to go
yeah,
to the kitchen and start cooking and
yeah.
kind of doing things. The third week, you don't leave your garden, right? Like you can walk around your property. And the fourth week, you can walk around your town and start to kind of be out with your baby a little bit. And it was so interesting because I had just never heard that before.
Mhm.
And their point being your body just went through a major effort, 9 months of growing a
Yeah.
baby
A
and
whole new
birthing
organ.
it, right? Whole new organ, right? All these things. And you think you're going to get up and go out to lunch with a friend in 2 days? No, you're not.
Yeah,
You are not.
yeah,
They
yeah,
can come to you and you're going
exactly.
to be in your bed. And, first 48 hours, someone's going to walk you back and forth to the toilet because you just went through something really major.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
just think
It's amazing.
recovery and, really listening to our bodies is something that's lost in a lot of spaces, especially a lot of even fitness spaces
Yeah,
where it's like, oh, we don't talk about recovery though. We'll go hard, it's 75 hard, right? With
yep.
that piece. And we don't get back
Oh,
up.
and I've made that mistake. I even made that mistake this year. I was doing a half marathon with my daughter-in-law, and then also working with a coach on some other things before I started into my training, and had made some very costly mistakes tracking my macros and my caloric intake, and come to find out I was under fueling by about 400 to 600 calories a day.
Ooh, ooh.
And I wasn't listening to my Garmin. It was yelling at me. My HRV status was getting lower and lower and lower, and I just ignored it. Just like this ego of like, I kind of know I can do this, I can do this, until I couldn't, until I
Yeah.
literally had to not work out at all
Yeah.
for a number of weeks outside of walking out. I mean, it was just like, what the heck? I mean,
Right.
and it was just like it was driven by an ego that I thought I knew better than my body did, but my body was giving me plenty of warning and I ignored it.
Yeah.
And we do that from time to time. We just get in our head, or we just think that we are somehow different than other
Mm,
people. We can
mm,
somehow do it differently, and then we find ourselves really hurting. Which I screwed up my metabolism. I screwed up my training.
mm.
It was terrible. I hated it. I
Yeah.
mean, I
Yeah.
absolutely hated it. It was a really big blow mentally to have to really kind of just like sit my butt down for a couple of months. And I was just like, gosh, that was so avoidable.
Right.
And yet I chose to do it anyway because I thought I could. And I thought I was somehow different.
Totally. Oh, so
That's what
powerful
a
that.
good coach is for. Good coaches help you to
Yep.
not make those
Yep.
decisions
And have
where
a
we
good
think we
plan.
can. And I think that was one last thing that I just want to say is that you were talking about finding somebody, on and same thing for me. I mean, especially in endurance races, you get to the point where your brain does not function well anymore and you
Mm,
start making
yeah.
bad decisions.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all you have to do is decide one thing. Can I find somebody who knows more than I do to tell me what I should do at this point? And
Yeah.
that's why great coaching in all areas of life, whether it be parenting or marriage, my husband and I have had, marriage counselors and therapists all throughout from the time we were pre-engagement, not always, but in different seasons. And same thing with, parents that are further down the line that have parented elementary school or teenagers or whatever it was that the season that we were going into. And the same with fitness, the same with finance. If you don't have the education to do it, you need to find somebody who knows more than you, and then you have to trust them. You
Yeah.
have to be willing to surrender and be vulnerable and believe that they have your best interest at heart. Still check your intuition because, especially for women, man, that intuition is so freaking good.
Yeah.
It saved me a couple times, but there are times where I've overridden it and I've dearly paid the price for it and allowed people to sow into my life that should not have been there.
Mm,
But most of the time, a great coach is going to help you avoid a lot of pitfalls, but more importantly, just help to speak to you when you're in your own little pit and remind you
totally.
it does not last forever.
Totally. Totally. Oh, amen. I love the shout out to coaches and hats off to you for
Thank
being a six-time finisher, all the
you.
incredible ways you've handled it, all the ways you're serving in the world. Like, I'm so inspired by you and by the whole event, and just the energy of it is like it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's contagious, you know? I
Yes.
mean, I just in that airport in Aspen, of course, our flight was delayed. So we had like 2 hours of looking around
Yeah.
at at first I thought it was a zip code. I'm like, what is this number? You know, like what's
That's
going
the 80s. That's where we're all watching 902.
Right? I know. I was like, is this I don't know. Anyway, so funny, but it's just so powerful. And I'm so grateful for your message. And thank you so much for coming on the show. If people want to connect with you, get in touch, what are your favorite social handles, website? We'll put it all in the show notes, but in case
Yeah.
they're listening, how do you want people
Definitely.
to connect with you, Arwen?
So, with regards to 29029, I've done many documentaries on all of my mountains that I've done. So, Aspen hasn't been thrown in there yet. That has been so helpful for people in my community just because if you've never experienced it, watching somebody go through the highs, lows, and everywhere in between, but on different mountains. So, all of those are on my YouTube, and it's the handle for that is Life with Arwen, Life with Arwen, Arwen. And then my website is arwenbecker.com. That really has everything to do with my keynote and all of the speaking I've done surrounding women and finance. But that's where you can also link to Amazon with regards to my books. And then probably the social media that I'm most active on is on Instagram, and that's just Arwen Becker. There's no period or anything in it. It's just one word, Arwen Becker, and that's where I post a lot of 29029 and other things having to do with health because I partner with other companies, naturopathic companies, and just other amazing organizations that are about health and athletics and things that really matter a lot to me as well. So I'd love to connect with anybody there too.
Very cool. And for those listening who were wondering, because I was wondering, it is Arwen from Lord of the Rings.
Yes, yes, it is. My dad always says he was a bit of a hippie in the 70s. So, yes, I went 48 years before I ever met another Arwen. And if you wouldn't believe it, Kat, she lives in my neighborhood.
What?
She's in my same homeowners association. I was like, who is this person? Why are they here? And I don't want to meet her. I don't want to meet her. No, but yeah, I'm actually in a Facebook group before the Lord of the Rings, really the movies really took off. There was a Facebook group of about 18 of us, and we're kind of all in the same age range, like mid 40s to mid 50s, somewhere in that age range. But now there's a lot of younger Arwens because of the movies.
I love it. Well, you
We did
wear
for
it
the
well.
books.
I mean, you're totally Arwen to me for forever and eternity. Like I'm gonna be calling on you in the spiritual realm too. So,
Yes, that
uh,
sounds awesome.
thank you so much for everything. And thank you, listeners. If you loved this, share it with a friend, and we'll hopefully see you on the mountain. Till next
Thank
time.
you.